Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Kadao Woman podcast, the podcast dedicated to amplifying the often overlooked success stories of remarkable African women who are barrier breakers, status quo challengers, and change makers around the world. I'm your host, Ola Harris. So today we're diving into the story of another impact-driven woman who expanded her mother's jewelry business into a retail powerhouse and also co-founded an innovative nonprofit that connects global students with internship opportunities with African innovators. Ola Erogbogbo-Oyeniyi is a remarkable entrepreneur bridging continents and culture, and her story is a testament to the power of purpose and perseverance. So get ready for another conversation filled with insights on adaptability, intentional networking, and why she believes in doing good work in Africa. Hi, Ola. How are you doing?
Hello, Lola. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, yes. I have been excited about this because obviously I know what you've accomplished, and I thought it would be great for everyone who's listening to just learn, be inspired, and of course, just connect with you and who you are and what you stand for. So I think I'm excited about the conversation we're going to have today, and I think it's going to be filled with, as they say, gems. So just jumping in. Obviously, you're a woman of many talents, and so knowing what you've accomplished, I'm going to have to start from the beginning from a cultural standpoint. As you know, every African parent, they have 4 jobs they're supposed to do. And if you veer off that path, you might not succeed in this life.
Yep.
And so how would you describe what you do for a living?
What I do.
Yes.
Yeah. So many things in various capacities. You're many things to many people. So I think how I would describe what I do is I am a giver of life. I am a connector. I'm there to ease the pain and make the connection and bring joy and laughter and support. And I'm thinking about just the different roles, right? That I play in so many people's lives as a wife, as a daughter, as a mother, as an aunt, as a sister, and as a brother, and all connected to what I believe my purpose is, right, in life. So
Which,
many roles to many people.
and we're going to get into that purpose because I think that's part of the essence of this platform really is connecting our why and what we do every day. And so I also know that you're a successful female African, emphasis on African entrepreneur, and you currently run the Deinte Design Limited, which is known for Deinte Jewelry, which is it's a parent company of Deinte. Is it Deinte, right? Deinte Fine Jewelry, which is also the number 1 retail brand in Nigeria, or jewelry brand in Nigeria, correct? And so can you talk about what you do with Deinte and how you got into it and all that good stuff?
So when it comes to Deinte, I have to give big ups to my mom. It started off as a way to kind of support the family interest in jewelry and the opportunity to be able to connect with manufacturers of jewelry. When I think about elegance and the epitome of beauty, I think of my mom. And she is someone that constantly wants to see the best in people and wants to see people's beauty amplified. And when it comes to jewelry, so when we talk about jewelry, she gets really excited when we're talking about designs. She gets really excited when we're talking about helping someone with a particular piece of jewelry. Maybe it's designing a piece of jewelry for their daughter's wedding or for their daughter or an engagement ring. We start talking about who the person is and what their essence is, and that turns into what the design looks like and what it comes out to be. And so I'll give props to her as far as Deinte Fine Jewelry is concerned. How I got involved was I was in corporate America for a while, and I was in marketing and branding, working as a project manager. But the opportunity came to open up a physical store. My mom had been running the business for a long time from home. So I took the opportunity and we launched our first store in Nigeria. I thought, since I had some experience in branding, in marketing, and I love Nigeria, I've always wanted to go back. It's home in some form or way. So this was an opportunity to go do that. And with Deinte, my creative side came out. I connected with my mom in terms of being able to design jewelry and connect it to the essence that you see in someone. They're bringing out what their beauty, their elegance, the vision that you have of them in jewelry just really excites me. So basically that's what we do at Deinte, really. I mean, we're a retail jewelry store, but we're jewelry designers also. And I feel like it's connected my purpose in terms of making people happy, revealing who they are through jewelry, if that makes sense.
It does. And I love that. And because you said it's custom jewelry, so it makes sense. You have to understand who your customer is and design for them just to get to the essence of who they are. Because it is one extension of how they show up in front of the place. And of course, we have that in connection. We're both in marketing and branding. So of course, I understand what you're trying to build there. And so a couple of questions to unpack in that one thing. And I appreciate you even just giving props to your mother, because I think there's something to be said about a female starting a business back in the day. We're not talking about now. We're talking about this is without the current resources we have from technology, access to capital, which is always going to be a challenge. And so, one, you obviously took on the challenge of going back to build a storefront in a country that you haven't worked in for a while. You'd left the country for, however many years. So there's that challenge. And then there's a challenge of, quite frankly, running a family business and transitioning through that. So can you speak to what it was like to merge two worlds together? You're coming in with this maybe modernized way or more up-to-date way of doing, you're nodding your head, getting things done. Let's talk through that. And then also the challenge of transitioning to go start a business back home.
Yes, many challenges. And I think it's a growing process. It's a journey. There are going to continually be challenges that you're faced with. So, I mean, one, yes, going to Nigeria, it was really exciting because at the time, a lot of people were going back home.
When was this? What year do you remember?
2007.
Okay.
So it was really exciting. A lot of people were going back home. It was exciting to see a lot of people at the time going back home. Obviously, when you first I'd never worked in Nigeria before. I've never worked on the African continent. You get there and you try to implement things that you've learned here. And you learn quickly that it doesn't work that way. It's a different market. It's a different terrain. People do things differently. And you kind of have to navigate getting things done effectively the way you would like for it to be done. Navigate transparency, because I'm really big on transparency, but that was something that I didn't really see a lot of. And obviously when my mom was running the business, she's running it from home. So she's running it the way she wants to run it. Now you're opening a storefront and you're dealing with a bunch of different vendors in terms of building out the storefront. You're dealing with importing certain things. You're dealing with producing certain things on ground. You're dealing with employees that you never had to deal with, that have a different way of thinking because where they've grown up or where they've worked or where their experience has been in this market. So you're bringing in ideas. You kind of have to slow yourself down. And I learned that I needed to really slow myself down and understand that this was a totally different market and learn from people that have been doing it on ground. So building a community around I remember I would go around different malls and walk into certain stores. And if I see that maybe an owner is there, I would have conversations with them. I remember I walked into a particular mall, I think it's called The Palms. And I remember the lady had a store that it was party supplies. And one of the first things that occurred to me, and I've been trying to figure it out, was how do you do inventory? And so I asked her, what?
Instead of control for theft,
Yes, and control for theft. So that was one of the questions that I asked her in our conversation was, how do you do inventory? And she goes, I don't do inventory. And I was like, what? How do you not do inventory? And basically it was just an impossible task for her to figure out. And that's what I find that there's a lot of one-man businesses because there's a lack of trust. There's a lack of wanting to give control because there's a lack of trust, right? So that's why she didn't come up with an inventory system, or she didn't confide in anybody to come up with an inventory system at that time. But basically, I would go into different stores and I would ask questions. I would meet with business owners and ask questions about how they're doing things. I remember our first set of staff employees that we hired, they were not interested in, I would be the one running to customers, right? When they're coming in. Here in the US, you start working, you'll have you have bills that you're paying. Right? In Nigeria, most people don't move out of their house till they're getting married. So for them, they're not paying rent, they don't have a mortgage, they're not paying car note or anything. So the responsibility for having to pay bills, they don't have to necessarily worry about. So they're not really, some of these people are not really motivated to, So I learned from my next door neighbor in the mall that she offers commission. So she has a basic salary and a commission that she offers. So basically, I had to learn from people around me, like, how do you do it here? What makes sense in this market, in this terrain? And I had to learn a lot and rely on my mom. And when it comes to my mom, yes, we had a lot of challenges. I think we're at the point that now we hear each other. Where I think probably I was here in terms of, I have all these ideas. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's do this. And she was more like the realist, right? She's like, this is Nigeria. This is Nigeria. One of the many things is like, you have to be security conscious because of kind of nature of our business. So in that, there were a lot of challenges. We bumped heads a lot, just in terms of how we wanted the translation of how we wanted the brand to be seen or perceived. But I think as years have gone by, we've recognized the strength and what we each bring to the table. And instead of her being up here me being up here in terms of my crazy ideas or things I want to do and how fast I want us to grow, and she's like, no, you have to be security conscious. You have to be concerned about traditions and culture and all that other good stuff. But I think we've come closer. She's probably come closer up, and I've come.
A stubborn child.
But yes, I think about when I think about I and my mom, I think about what's that saying? Is it a Yoruba saying about the mouth and the tongue? There's no way that you won't fight, but you're stuck together, really.
Right.
Sometimes you bite on your tongue by mistake and it hurts. The tongue is not going anywhere.
Oh my God, why are Yoruba people so just dramatic in their proverbs? No, but I love that. And I love the fact that you talk through just the challenges of, quite frankly, adapting from an American way of doing things, because especially if you work in corporate America, there's a lot of challenges going back home and just dealing with a different system, a different way of getting things done, the efficiency factor, the operational issues, and you're still trying to make a profit. You're still trying to run a business. And then you're now having the extra hurdle for you starting. You're basically growing the business to a new dimension, like this next big phase, which is putting a storefront, a retail storefront. So there's so many other factors that your mom cannot even take you through because she's not had to deal with it, like you said. So I love the fact that you talk through the challenges and then you're introspective on just the fact that you just knew you had to adapt. You came with this mindset, you had ideas, but you realized very quickly, I'm going to have to learn. I have to learn quickly, and I have to use the resources around you. And I think that's something to be said about not being totally naive when you move back home, especially, but being open to the process, still understanding what you're bringing to the table. And like you said, you were up here with your creative ideas and understanding you had to meet your mom and also the employees halfway and just realize it's a different way of doing things. So love that. Love the fact that you took initiative there and also understood the challenges of running a business in Nigeria. So There's another passion of yours that I want to get to, but before we do that, though, I would say, how would you describe Deinte today? Like, where is Deinte today? So this is 2007. You moved back. You built your first storefront. What is the current status?
So we presently have 2 storefronts that we're running.
Awesome.
They're both in Lagos, so that's definitely growth. I would consider ourselves, yes, a household name. I think in the process, things have, I would say things are grown in a slower pace than I guess I would expect, thinking of the way things are done in America. But I think even in that growth, we've gotten to know the brand better and know ourselves better. So we've built a solid foundation. So I think going forward, what we're looking to do is to connect with a whole lot more people in terms of being part of their journey, their celebrations, their milestones, and their discovery of their essence, right, is where I would say we're at with Deinte. We've built a really solid foundation, and I'm excited about the years to come. I think in the last few years, I've been focused on what are the next steps in terms of we've done a lot of production outside of Nigeria, vision production within Nigeria, and envision more creativity in our designs. I'm looking forward to the future. I'm not sure exactly what the future holds, but I'm excited about the foundation that we built and the brand that we built so far, and being a household name and seeing where we'll go from there.
So I have a follow-up question just based on what you said. You talked about the growth not being at the speed you expected it to be, especially knowing what you experienced in the States. How would you describe access to capital? Because that's one of the advantages to starting a business here. You can just kind of, if you have the right business plan, you can pretty much get access to capital if you're creative enough and smart about where to go for resources. Was capital ever an issue for growing the business?
Yes. So just going back to my mom. My mom started the business in 1983.
Wow.
Capital is always a problem I think in Nigeria. So over here, you could probably put together, a business plan and find an investor, going to a bank and probably, get a loan or credit. In Nigeria, it's different. You kind of have to know somebody.
Right.
You're gonna have to know somebody that has money or have connections to a bank or something. But my mom started the business actually with $5,000.
Wow.
1983, $5,000 that she borrowed from her mom.
Wow.
And she took a trip to Italy with a resource, I would call the person that had a pipeline to manufacturers in Italy. And basically, she bought things that cost $5,000 and came back with the pieces, and she worked her network. And one of the things that she emphasizes, or that has been ingrained in me, is that you need to put back capital back into the business. They're always she always says, shiny things don't go away. So Italy, and she goes, she goes do business, and maybe she walks by a store with a really nice purse, but then she's focused on, what she came to do. And she's like, there are always going to be nice bags.
Basically, enemy of progress. Stay away from the enemy of progress.
Exactly. Every time you come by, and there's going to be a time for that. But she continued to reinvest in the business, and she did take loans. So basically working our network. One of the things that we also say we have in common is that we say people are like water, and which I translate into being intentional about when you connect with someone or when you meet someone, because you never know when you're going to need that person again, or going to get to engage or have an opportunity to maybe build with that person in some sort of ways. So she basically worked that network with the PCs that she bought for $5,000. And in working that network of buyers, that translated into people that were willing to invest in her over time. That turned into getting a loan to go make her next purchase, right? Coming back with that and, selling to within our network again. I mean, these loans were obviously with interest,
Right.
all right? Probably higher interest than, you would get in a bank or from a family member. But I mean, just to be able to even access capital was a great thing.
Right.
And then from there, she continued to work a network and build a network. And then it got to a point where she had relationships with manufacturers that she would be able to walk away with things worth $250,000 in terms of a line of credit, right?
Right.
That's what
Right.
you call it.
Right.
She would have lines of credit with different manufacturers, and she was always she was always on about paying on time.
Right.
When she says she's going to pay, she doesn't overextend herself. But those were all things that I learned from her. Just as far as capital is concerned, I think there are people, even as much as you would think, well, there's no real access to capital for a lot of people. But I think if you work your network, if you're intentional about your engagement with people, if you let your yes be yes and your no be no, people will trust you enough to extend a helping hand in a form of a loan, in the form of a line of credit. And that really pulled us through the years to a point where we don't have to get a loan anymore.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Love that. And I love the fact that she started with an investment from her mom. And now that business has grown double fold. Probably you're taking it to the next level. It's like there's this continuation that's amazing to see. And I don't think we have enough of those stories in itself. Just generational businesses that succeed and they're passed on as well. So I think that's even a different conversation from
I think we do have stories. I just think that people are not trusting enough to share those stories.
Why do you think so? That is an interesting perspective.
We come from a culture where you're not supposed to share.
Because your enemies can be listening, right?
Yes. Your enemies can be listening, or yes, exactly.
And which is sad, because there's something to be said about just seeing an example that you can resonate with. And again, I have to go back to why this podcast exists. It's because we just need to showcase more of ourselves and our success stories. And so, but I love the fact that by you being you're an extension of that story. So we might not find everybody, but we found you. So I'm glad. So I want to transition to another passion of yours called DOWA. And so I actually want you to talk about DOWA and why you started the organization and how you started the organization. And then we'll go from there.
Yes, DOWA, doing good work in Africa. I think for a long time, I've always thought I was created for a bigger purpose. I think, to be honest with you, I think when I went into jewelry, at the time, being a jeweler wasn't something of quote unquote prestige, right? And you would hear like the background noise of people talking when I did that. But as time went on, I understood why.
You mean when you transitioned from corporate America to running a jewelry store?
Yeah, there's noise. I think from where we come from, there's certain, jobs that are prestigious, right? At the time. I think we moved into an era where creativity was now you could make a career out of creativity. Right. But I think at the time, 2007, 2006, that was not really a big thing.
It wasn't a major four.
It wasn't at the time. But I recognized the reason why I enjoyed it. I enjoyed meeting different people. I think when I was younger, I always thought I was going to be a doctor. But I tell people now that I became a jewelry doctor is what I would call it, or a jeweler that's a doctor. Because in this engagement that I have with customers, it's almost like you're a therapist. So right. You're talking through a visit and you're hearing about all this, issues, ups, downs, celebrations, milestones, and you're basically a therapist,
Right.
right?
Right.
A different kind of doctor. But coming back to DOWA, I think for a long time, I've always wondered I knew there was a bigger purpose, but I just couldn't figure it out. So I remember there's a close friend of mine, and we'll talk about, what were we created for?
Mm-hmm.
And I know it has to do with people, right? And I'd moved partially to Nigeria for Deinte, but I was still in Chicago because my family, my husband and a child was here. So I was doing a lot of shuttling back and forth.
Mm.
And I was like, I remember I was praying one day and I was trying to figure out, I'm like, God, why am I still in Chicago? Because I think at some point I thought we're all going to move to Nigeria. Why are we still in Chicago? And I thought to myself, there has to be, a reason why.
Mm.
God still has me here, but I just couldn't figure out the purpose. And I think, you get hasty, right? But God prepares you for when whatever it is comes. But at the same time, you kind of have to go out there, right?
Right. Right. You can't be dormant. You can't be
You
sitting
can't
on
be
the
dormant.
sidelines.
You kind of have to go out there and meet people. So, I mean, God is not going to come from heaven and come lead you down a path, right? He uses people.
Yes.
So you actually need to go out there and meet people and meet your king makers and your queen makers, as I would call it. So because I'm running a business in Nigeria and I'm living in Chicago, some opportunities came that gave me a chance to speak about entrepreneurship in Africa or in an emerging market. And I think probably the first speaking engagement I got, I was so nervous. I'm like speaking in front of people. Like, what do I know about? How much do I know about running the business? I mean, there's so many challenges that I'm going through with the business. So
I'm not ready yet.
why would I want to go? Why would I want to go share that? But I think sharing those challenges, sharing those failures is what, inspires people. Also, aside from, sharing the successes, right? People need to hear about the failures and the challenges that you have. And I actually truly believe that the failures, the challenges that you experience truly lead you to your purpose. And I think that's what I would say how DOWA was birthed, even though it was basically a gap that I recognized in some of the speaking engagements that I had, right? So I got to speak at those engagements because I had experience in Africa and also because I was present here, right? Mm. And I had something people wanted to hear about. People have an interest in Africa, whether that is they want to move back at some point, or they want to be able to run a business there, or they just yearn to want to connect back to Africa in some sort of way. I recognized that there was a gap there, and I had something that I could share to maybe not fill the gap, but to give them insight into that particular interest that they have. And some of the platforms that I'd spoken at were students' campuses. So basically speaking to students about, those insights that I have about Africa or working in Africa. And so recognizing the gap that these students have an interest in Africa, they're looking for a way to connect. Some of the students are first generation Africans. Some of them have never been to Africa. Some of them, their only connection to Africa is through their parents. Mm. And some of their parents came here with bad experience that they left behind. Mm. So I recognize that gap from speaking on these different platforms and engaging with individual students. The other thing that I recognized also in Nigeria, and this was born out of a selfish need to want to grow our customer base at Deinte. Mm-hmm. So, and part of it was where I said, you need to go out there, right? Right. People. So I started networking, working my network, going to events.
This was in Lagos, right?
It was in Lagos, seeing what's happening in Lagos. And a lot of my friends are involved with things in innovation or people that I'm close to anyways, innovation, wanting to find ways to change things for the betterment of Nigeria or Nigerians. So going to those different events, I saw that they're actually Nigerians that are building really good or trying to solve problems on ground. So a friend of mine that we went to high school together, we get together from time to time when we talk about just, life and purpose and so on. And I started running this by her in terms of students that, want to connect with Africa in some sort of way, and things that are happening on the continent. We're seeing a lot of changes lately for the better. I mean, there's a lot of infrastructural issues, lack of transparency or corruption. But the things happening that could bypass that. We're seeing things in technology, in innovation happening that could help us leap past those physical problems. And we said, we brainstormed different things and we came to a conclusion. What would I call it, a conclusion? A way to connect some of those students to those innovators through our networks. And we decided to start with a few students through an internship program, interning with a few organizations in Africa. And also, I mean, part of that was also, it came from me understanding that I spent 4-5 years in college in the US. And when I moved back, it was a total culture shock, right? Because I didn't have that connection or any insight on working on the continent or understanding Africa in that light, right? In that context. So I thought it would be interesting when I was a student, if I had that opportunity to experience Africa from the context of working, not just, vacation or through family or maybe through charities that I might have been involved in. So we thought that would be interesting. There were a lot of challenges. We thought about, how do you take students physically to who's going to be responsible for them. So we spoke to Nigeria Diaspora Commission. We started talking to different people just to get their perspective on.
So that was the first thing you did. So you had the idea and then you started reaching out to different people who would have more information.
Yes.
Okay.
On how we could go about doing that. We got the support of Nigeria in Diaspora Commission.
How did you pitch them?
Well, so basically working my network. Like I said, I think being intentional in every meeting that I'm opportuned or people that I'm opportune to meet. I would say that some of these connections also came through running Deinte.
Mm-hmm.
So running Deinte got me an opportunity to engage with a lot of elites.
Okay.
Right. So in that regard, you build a network of people that have means, right, to get things done, whether it's through people that they know or their network or financially and so on. And also, I mean, in that you're connecting with these people, so you recognize who they are, who their asset.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, that was one of the connections that I've had over time. And I think it was pitched at a Christmas party.
Wow.
I walked up to her and I told her what I was thinking, and she saw the vision. You'll find that there are actually people with vision. I believe that each and every one of us has a purpose, wants to do good work. I think the circumstances that people are in might prevent that, but if they're given the opportunity to do good work, they would. I think one of the people that inspires me, that I see that does that in terms of seeing the good in everybody, is T.Y. Bello.
Oh, okay.
I remember I would see people she would photograph. Some of the people are not people that have great reputation, but she was photograph them in such a way that their essence comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was telling her, I sent her a message the other day, and I was like, I met her a while ago at an event. I think it was a wedding, and that's how we connected. And I sent her a message recently, and I said she was one of the people that inspired me to see good in people.
That's amazing.
Even people that I wouldn't expect, or maybe others might not want to see or expect to see good in them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I believe that every one of us, if given the opportunity, circumstances to do good work, we will do the good work, or that essence of who we are will be projected.
Yeah.
But basically, I mean, it all circles back, and I know I'm talking in circles in a way, but I believe that when it comes to your purpose, which I believe DOWA is for me, it all connects, it all circles back. And even though DOWA's mission, right, when you go on our website, you see DOWA's mission is to connect student interns to African organizations that are doing good, scalable, and impactful work on the continent. It all circles back to us believing that good work can be done. Anybody can do good work if they have the right resources, they have right tools, the right access to skills, and if they're given the opportunity to. I think one of the other inspirations that I had was I attended this Google event where they were launching several products in Nigeria. And let me go back a little bit. So working with the elite in the jewelry store, picture this, I'm in the store, I'm designing this beautiful piece of jewelry for somebody getting married with diamonds and coral and so on. And then I step outside of the store and I see someone that has talent, but then their talent they don't get an opportunity to use talent to better themselves, to better the people around them. And I think I became so disillusioned about Nigeria as a whole, right? But then going out and seeing things that were happening, and one of them was that Google event. They launched nine products, and they were all tech, right? Tech products, apps. They went from an app where you could take a picture of a page in a Bible, a page in a book, or a sign on the wall, and it would translate it from English to Yoruba or to Igbo. So there were a bunch of different apps that they came up with. And I started talking to people, and I'm like, why would Google want to come and create an app that can translate from English to Igbo? And I found out that those apps were actually created by Nigerians, right?
Oh, wow.
Google basically put in the hands of these talents, resources, an opportunity to learn, and gave them an opportunity to create solutions to problems that they saw around them.
Right.
So that was so amazing.
I love that.
Yeah. And I thought, here we are, they bypass issues with corruption. You can get tech in the hands of people easily these days. And they're creating, solutions to real problems on ground. Like, I started to see what the possibilities were. And as far as the students were concerned, I thought also that, when I went to school in Nigeria and when I came here to college, I remember I would be in a class and maybe a teacher would ask, if anybody had a question. And I remember the first time somebody got up and asked what I thought was a stupid question. And I said, why would you get up and ask that kind of, like, I was shocked that anybody would get up and, but that's not how, I grew up. And I think I went to school in Nigeria also, right?
Right, yeah.
You don't get up and ask stupid questions.
You process everything before you open your mouth, right?
But they're taught, they're taught differently. I think about my children also. They're taught to be bold. They're taught to, to think critically. Them being able to express themselves and share their thoughts helps them refine those. So, I mean, thinking about the students here and connecting them with peers like themselves in different, working on different kinds of projects, or looking to create solutions to different kind of problems, like what we could possibly be building here on this side of the continent. We're giving students an opportunity to understand the context of Africa in a different kind of way, sensitizing them to that. This could potentially be a new generation or set of innovators and advocates for Africa.
Right.
And these are not, students that are of just African descent, right? This is students of different races.
So this is the students in the States are of different races, and they're connecting them with students in Africa.
Yes. We're connecting them with organizations, innovators in Africa. Some of them happen to be students that maybe work for the organization.
Okay.
In terms of they also have interns that are on ground in Africa, but we're collecting them to the experts that are actually running the company or working in the company and are driving, creating solutions to problems, whether in agriculture or in energy or in transportation, in various sectors. And on the flip side, in Africa now, these students are coming with a way of thinking outside the box, right? And sharing knowledge and a different kind of exposure that they've been exposed to, but they're not coming in a sense of telling them what to do, which was what I initially did, right? When I went back to set up Deinte.
Right.
I quickly recognized that, no, this is a different, market, different terrain. And I needed, people that were on ground working on the solution, or working, found ways of going around creating, developing creative solutions and learning how to engage with those people and also help in collaborating with them in creating other solutions.
Yeah. No. So I think, first of all, I appreciate you even just going into the backstory, the origin of DOWA. I love the name DOWA. I love the fact that it's born from doing good work and just recognizing the good in people, and that if they have an opportunity tied with resources, they can just make this impact on many levels, micro, local, national, whatever sphere of influence they have. And I also love the fact that you were able to just be open-minded and just see past the negative narratives that we have on the continent, especially Nigeria, and just seeing the opportunity and just seeing there's something here. If Google can come in here, there's something here. And how do we create more opportunities for people? Again, it sounds you're obviously very intentional in everything you do. So I can see how you're going to connecting all those dots. But as you must have noticed this, or must have come across this in your experience of creating DOWA, which, by the way, we didn't even mention, this was created during the middle of a pandemic, was started in the middle of a pandemic. So first of all your plans went out the door right there off the bat. And so we'll talk through the challenges there. But I think the one question that comes to mind when you hear anybody say they started an NGO or a nonprofit connected to Africa in one sentence, the mixed reviews. There's that, they're going to steal all your money. Can you trust? All the negative comes up. There's no one talking about the positives there, because you do need the non-profit organizations still doing some of the work on the ground. And so, just based with that knowledge, how would you say you were able to navigate through that perception of being another nonprofit tied to a country like Nigeria and overcoming the perception that precedes you before you even start to do the work? How did you overcome that?
I mean, I'll be lying if I said, I woke up and all the answers came to me. It's been a journey, a learning journey. I think some of the things that I've implemented over time has been from courses that I've taken.
Okay.
The idea of collaboration, how to get people to collaborate, the idea of understanding people's value proposition before you even go into having a conversation with them, and negotiating. Those were things that I learned from courses that I took. So yeah, being intentional about learning what you need to learn,
Yes.
right? So I mean, I took several courses, and when it comes to Africa, yes, I totally get what you're saying. But part of that is also finding the right partner. I knew I couldn't do this alone.
Mm-hmm.
I got to understand myself better. So there were like, psychological tests or quizzes that you take to understand who you are, to understand where your weaknesses are, and what kind of partner would complement.
So what did you find out? Now we have to know, what was your weakness? What was wrong with you?
So I'm one of those people that I'm constantly having ideas. I mean, I would say I have great ideas, but the thing about constantly having ideas is that if you do not, execute. So I'm not the greatest executor, but I have great ideas.
I understand that problem.
So I had to find a partner that was strategic in terms of execution. Someone that, like my mom, that would say, "Oh, that's a great idea, but
Come back to earth."
Exactly. Let's crawl before we run. But someone that would be like, you know what, let's run,
Right.
kind of deal. So someone that would complement, some of those weaknesses that I just shared with you, is my partner. And one of the things I also wanted to learn was strategy, right? I'd taken courses in strategy, but I wanted to also learn it in what does that mean in corporate. I left corporate for so long. Even some of the terms and the jargons that people say when they're speaking, it was foreign to me.
So you had to re-educate yourself.
So I'm basically re-educating myself through classes, and I was searching for mentors, and my partner happens to be someone that I would call a mentor, someone I would say has, my weaknesses in a way has strengths.
That's awesome.
And so we're able to build together. But I think I skipped back past what your other question was.
No, you answered it actually. You did. You answered it because the challenge was really, how do you build with the reputation that precedes NGOs in the continent? So you answered the question. I think, but preceding that, what I wanted to come back to though was building during a pandemic. You're launching in a pandemic. You have plans. You've navigated the waters. You figured out a plan. You made all the connections on the continent. You're seeing opportunity here. COVID hits in March 2020.
Yes.
How does DOWA still come out of that?
We're working our networks where we connected with a few organizations. The pilot program was supposed to take place in Nigeria. We connected with NICOM. NICOM had given us their blessings. Now we're about to embark on recruiting students, and then the pandemic hits. And basically we're like, okay, this is done, right? But then my experience has been working virtually with Deinte, right? Because I live in Chicago. So then we started speaking about, well, I mean, for part of the year, even though I have boots on the ground, pretty much all year round, I'm able to operate and run things virtually. So working virtually is possible. We just kind of have to navigate the program in a way that will help the students figure out how to effectively work and deliver on their deliverables,
right?
Their goals, and also the organizations. So from the organization's standpoint, obviously that was a challenge. We had organizations that dropped out because the pandemic hit, and they're like, we're not equipped to run things virtually, or we're thinking about other problems that we have.
Right.
And be responsible to engage with students at this time. So that involved us, then going around and trying to sell it to some other organizations that virtual can work. It's I work virtually sometimes, and I run a business in Nigeria. It's about, we can approach this on a project-based approach for each organization. What are the problems you're trying to solve, and how do we turn those into projects that either are ongoing or projects that you're looking to get done in the near future. And if you have people working on those projects, what can students do to enhance that? They can do the grunt of the work in terms of research. Instead of bringing coffee, they're on the computer doing a lot of research and trying to put all this information together for you. So that's basically how we sold it to organization, and how we pitched it to organizations. And we ended up with 3 organizations that said, okay, we'll try it. And these were organizations run by people that I had either studied in the US or worked in the US. So they had an understanding of how internships work, what value add the students can possibly bring to the table, and they decided to take a chance on us. Going back to your question about when you're doing work in Africa and the mistrust that people have, like I said, working your network, being intentional about the relationships that you have. I think one of the organizations that came on board was someone that I'd never met. Actually, all the organizations that came on board were people that I had never met. I reached out to a friend of mine that used to live in Chicago and had moved to Nigeria, and she was working in Nigeria. She's running a startup now. So I reached out to her to see if anybody within our network would be interested. And she connected me with someone. The person sent me an email. We had a conversation. They happened to be an organization that had a presence in 7 African countries. So I was blown away. I think one of the other organizations that is a venture capital organization was, I made a post in an African group that I was in on Facebook. And the person that ran the group reached out to me and said, oh, I'm a strategic advisor for this venture capital in Africa that has a presence in Nigeria and South Africa. They might be interested in this. And we had a conversation with them. And for us, having that conversation is us getting insight if this organization connects with our mission and the vision that we have, if they understand what that relationship is going to be like in terms of a mentor-mentee. Really, it's a symbiotic, relationship. And if this is an organization, definitely that fits the criteria of doing good, scalable and impactful work in Africa. So, I mean, there were a lot of challenges, but we worked, and you need people.
Right.
And because you need people, you need to have make connections that are meaningful. You need to have deposited in people's bank accounts, and I don't mean that literally. I mean in whether it's from an emotional standpoint or a credibility standpoint. You can't withdraw from a negative account.
That's not the truth. That is so true.
So, I mean, we were able to navigate it with people.
Right.
Much. And going back to when it comes to trust, I know a lot of people have a distrust for when you hear something happening in Africa. But what's the reason why there's distrust, or what makes you have that distrust, right?
Lack of transparency.
So how do we ingrain transparency into this process? Is basically sharing the process with people, but also taking out what people think they could lose. So we took out the question of money. How do we create this nonprofit in a way where there's collaboration involved, where there's a value proposition that everybody is getting something out of it, and there's no monetary expectation. I think when we say that, when people hear that, then they lower their guard, right? So we found a way around that. We found, over here in the US, there are schools that actually do have grants and funds that students could tap into to participate in a program like ours. So for the students can go find funds and to enable them participate in the program. Some students can decide that, well, I don't really need the funds. I just want the experience. This is going to elevate, whether it's their purpose or elevate their resume or elevate their experience, take them to the next level in terms of their career. So, and on the side of the partner organizations in Africa, there's no monetary expectation of them. We're just creating an ecosystem of people of like minds that really want to do good work and have a vested interest in the development of Africa, engaging, connecting, engaging, and build, like we like to say at DOWA.
I love that. I love the full circle. I know you talked about circles earlier, but I love how that comes full circle. I love the fact that you actually spoke about how you have to pivot, you have to adapt. And again, it goes back to just relying on your professional network and cashing in or withdrawing from past investments from a relationship standpoint, doing the introspective work of knowing who you are and what you need to get this done, but also more importantly, just being super strategic in how you build DOWA. I think that's the key takeaway there, because that was solving problems in multiple ways and created all these wins in a very short time. You got all these partnerships, you got access to more opportunities to even connect and build that ecosystem you talked about. And I can only imagine what the next step is for DOWA. Based on that. And so I think, obviously we're having a great conversation. We're running short on time, and there's more stuff I actually want to ask you, but maybe we might have a part 2. I don't know. Time will tell. But let's go back to you as a person, Ola. And so I think everything you shared is actually very inspirational. And so at the very core of it, I would love to know what matters the most to you.
I think at the very core of it, what, gives me peace at night is knowing that I've done good work, giving people an opportunity to also do good work. I think that I find joy in that.
I love that. And that shows up in Deinte too, right? It's just in a different expression. And so one of my favorite quotes is by Steve Jobs, and I'm paraphrasing, but it talks about just when you look back, you can connect the dots. If you look back on all your experiences, all the things you've accomplished, all your failures, all the challenges, everything you've overcome, what is that common thread that's led you through and connected you to your purpose as you've defined it? The one thing that's been consistent.
That's a deep one.
We try to go deep on the Kadawa Woman podcast once in a while.
I think what connection I make across all the failures and the successes and the challenges is knowing who I am. I think without those experiences, I wouldn't know who I am. And I think it's really important to know who you are in various circumstances. I think all those experiences, aside from, part of knowing who you are is being grounded, right? But yeah, if looking at all my experiences, or in terms of challenges and failures and successes, it really revealed who I am. It actually also connected me to my purpose.
Yeah, love that. And so you're looking back on this journey that you've had to date. What's the best advice you've had? or received on the journey?
Best advice that I've received.
Yeah.
Journey. I think surrounding yourself with truth sayers, it helps ground you. When you get called out of your name, they remind you who you are.
Has that happened?
Not necessarily people. Yes, actually. I just thought of an example popped in my head. I was going to say not exactly, but I was going to say, well, not necessarily people calling you out of your name, but things in life happens that kind of puts you in a different kind of light. It might even be things that you do with your own hands, but that is not really who you are, right?
Right.
You take people around you that know who you are, that are truth sayers and ground you to remind you who you are.
Right.
I think that is really important through this journey called life that you have. I had a conversation with a friend of mine. I recently, I think, found something out about myself, right? And and he explained a lot of things. And I think that's one of the things I also try to tell people is in knowing who you are and connecting with who you are, do not dismiss things that you experience or things that you feel. I mean, you might go to the doctor and the doctor says, basically, in not so many words, tell you what you think, what you're feeling is just in your head.
Right.
Do not search till you find an answer.
Don't dismiss it, basically.
Don't dismiss it. Don't let anybody dismiss how you're feeling. So I was having a conversation with one of my friends that I would call a truth sayer, one of those that ground me in my life. And I was sharing this journey or this thing that I discovered and how, like for the first time in my life, I'm experiencing life in a different way because now it makes sense, right? And I'm sharing this with her and sharing some of the things that I'm doing. And she's like, it sounds to me like you are making excuses for accepting this remedy or, and in a way, that was obviously what I was doing in my head. and she's like, she was like, there's so many people out there that would want an answer,
right?
Just to have an answer,
right?
And you have an answer. So I would say yes, you want to know who you are, and that comes from different experiences that you have. That comes from having something of a higher power that you believe in. I believe in God. I read the Bible. I connect in that kind of way. So that's where I get my being spirit filled and spirit led and being able to feel connect with who, or be spirit led to share with who can give me inspiration or give me great input or guidance. And if things happen in your life or you get called out of your name, you know who you are, or you have somewhere you can turn to remind you of who you are, and surrounding yourself with truth sayers. Some of those truths are hard to hear sometimes, but
but it helps.
But it helps, and it keeps you grounded. And I mean, those truths are not always, bad truths. Those are, a lot of those truths are just reminding you of your essence and reminding you that you have a purpose, reminding you that you are created to do good and you can do good and you are doing good.
So I think this is actually another good segue for the last section of our conversation, which is I like to call it the lightning round. And so obviously from talking to you, there's a lot of you're very introspective, you're very self-aware, you take the time to just develop yourself. Self-growth is important to you. And I'm getting all of that from this conversation, not because I've known you before this too, but just from this conversation. And so you mentioned the Bible, which I think is great because there is something to be said about acknowledging a higher spirit or higher power. And so I'm curious if there's and you can only pick one. If you have two, you can say it. But if you have a favorite quote that just keeps you inspired, keeps you in the right mindset, or a book that you read the last book you read that also inspired you. So I believe in feeding your mindset, and so I'm curious what you do in that space. So a favorite quote or a favorite book the last favorite book you read that inspired you. One or two, if you have to, but you can choose one for sure.
Favorite quote. I mean, there are many quotes that I get turned to or inspire me from the Bible, from life, from things that I put together myself. But I think about, is it Jeremiah 11? If I can recall exactly word for word what it says.
You can paraphrase, that's okay.
Paraphrase that we're created for, we're created for, now I can't remember exactly what how it goes.
But it's Jeremiah 11.
Yes. I think it talks about how we're created for a purpose, how we're nothing bad. God doesn't intend for anything bad, for us to go through anything bad, right? And I think that's exactly what that says.
That's the essence of it.
Yeah, something along the line of that. I can't actually quote word for word what it is, but the other quotes I like, and people don't necessarily like this quote, but I think I have a deeper
understanding
to it. And I know a lot of people say this even in the social media world that we live in. I say, fake it till you
make it.
And for me, it doesn't maybe translate the way a lot of people think of it. I see it as practicing till it feels authentic.
I like that.
I see it as when you know who you are at the core of it, it doesn't necessarily come natural, right? When you discover, maybe you're on the discovery journey of what your purpose is, it doesn't necessarily come natural to you. You have to work that part of discovering who you are. You have to work that part of, working your network. And it requires practicing. It requires faking it when you don't feel like it to get to a point where you truly know who you are and you can actually be authentic.
Yeah, I like that. And so a couple more questions. And again, just there's no wrong answer. So speak your truth in this one. What are your thoughts on destiny?
Ooh, Kadara.
Kadara, exactly. What are your thoughts?
I think we are created for a purpose, but I think you have the power to write how that purpose comes to fruition. Even though you're created for a purpose, you actually have to want to engage in that purpose. You have to want to walk in that purpose.
Right.
So, I mean, destinies, that everybody has a destiny, but you have to choose that destiny. God has given us a choice to choose to work in our purpose.
Yeah, love it. So, there are a lot of words that actually describe you, especially as the Kadara woman. But if you had to sum yourself in 3 words, what would you say?
3 words.
3 words. Don't do just 3.
Okay. 3 words. 3 words that are in a sentence?
No. Just 3 adjectives to describe who you are as a personal brand as Ola Erogbogbo-Oyeniyi.
I think I'll still use the same. It's a sentence, but it's still 3 words. It's still 3 words, but it's a short phrase. Purpose-driven woman.
I love that. I love it. So, and that is your brand, and that's the essence of a Kadara woman. And I wanted you to say that. So thank you, because I thought that you're intentional. You are, again, just introspective and self-aware, and you understand that there is more to everything you're doing. There's a higher purpose in your life, pretty much, and it's your goal, really, to go figure that out. So to anyone listening, what would you say to them? That piece of advice you leave them with?
I would say keep moving. Tomorrow is another day.
Mm-hmm.
To connect with your purpose, to connect with your destiny. Everything that you've experienced, everything you're experiencing is for that purpose.
Yep. And last question, where can people learn more about Deinte or DOWA, whatever it is that you want to share?
So with Deinte, you can learn about Deinte at Deinte.com.
Mm-hmm.
Deinte is actually the old English spelling, old English and old French spelling of dainty, elegance, DAINTY.
I love that.
So my mom always used to describe things as dainty, so that was where the name kind of came from, and we put a spaz on it by change.
So you came up with the name when you did the storefront and everything.
Yes.
Nice, love that. Okay.
So yes, they can find more information about Deinte, Deinte.com, DEINTE.com. And we're very active on our Instagram page. You can see a lot of our designs and so on our Instagram page, Deinte Fine Jewelry. As far as DOWA, you can connect with us at dowafrica.org. That's DOWAFRICA.org. And we're also very active on our LinkedIn page and other social media handles.
Awesome. And we'll definitely share all of that in the show notes. Ola, this has been a pleasure. I've loved talking to you. I wish there was way more time. And I just want to say thank you for just sharing your story, the challenges, the success stories of just being a true female Nigerian entrepreneur, both here in the US and also on the continent. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much, Ola. It's good to reconnect.
Wasn't that a cool story? I mean, how often do you hear about a first-generation business started by a female in the 80s having the opportunity to be modernized by your daughter? I hope Ola's story has inspired you to find your own path, as she talked about how she navigated challenges, embraced the opportunities in front of her, and found her calling in connecting African talent with global resources. Remember, your experiences, both successes and failures, shape who you are and can lead you to your true calling. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or simply just looking to connect with your roots, Ola's journey reminds us that with determination, self-awareness, and the willingness to adapt, we can be on a path to fulfilling our dreams. And one more request before you go. If you did enjoy this episode, please be sure to rate and review or share with a friend who could use some inspiration. With your support, we can continue to amplify these untold African stories. You can also follow us on social media at Kadara Woman. Thanks again for listening, and until then, this is Lola reminding you that you have the power to write your own story. Keep challenging the status quo and never stop believing in yourself. See you next time on the Kadara Woman podcast.